And good evening, and once again, welcome to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly, and welcome to what will now be the permanent channel for the Shadow Gallery. As I said on the other video, if you did actually watch that one first, that the votes have been tallied. More people seem to prefer, more of my regular subscribers seem to prefer the long form as opposed to the divvied up short forms of the reviews, so this is the way we're going to be doing it from now on. So welcome to the new YouTube channel. If this is your first time, please don't forget to subscribe, and we'll get into all of that stuff, near the end. But for now, it's time for new comics, bitches! So in that way, I only have to say that once. So that's a nice thing. Anyway, so yes, I saw the Avengers for the second time today, and because now it's Memorial Day weekend and had the day off, so really good day. Of course, any day is a great day where you can go and see the Avengers, because, and I might get into this in more depth at a later point, but just seeing that film, honestly, not only is it the culmination of every childhood fantasy that you have about seeing a live action Avengers film, but you just have this ridiculously huge smile on your face throughout probably about 90% of the film. The only time that it kind of gets wiped off is when some of the more unfortunate things happen, and that ultimately has brought a tear to my eye both times that I've seen it. So for those of you who've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, we're not here to really talk about the Avengers, the film. We're here to talk about comics this week. And let's kick it off. So, Amazing Spider-Man 686. Now, again, this is the penultimate chapter in Ends of the Earth, which is their big 50th anniversary gala. Now, I think that I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone, actually, when I say that this has really not lived up to anybody's expectations. Everybody seems to be very disappointed in this in regards to it being a 50th anniversary type of celebration. And I'm taking this out. My heart's gonna stop. Anyway, no. So, because basically what it seems like Dan Slott has opted to do here is that they've tried to make something that is epic, but is on small enough of a scale to just kind of encompass Spider-Man and his world. But that's really the problem. That's what this is lacking. I mean, really, this should have been last year. I think a lot more people would be okay with this, or be more okay with it, because just even as a storytelling standpoint, it's not that great. It's still better than, obviously, anything, like J. Michael Straczynski did on this title, but it's certainly not the snuff. Now, if they had just reversed things, if they had done Spider Island this year and this last year, everything would be peachy keen. I mean, it would be, because Spider Island was amazing. It was brilliant, and it encapsulated every part of Spidey's life, and that was one of the things that was so great about it. And this just seems to be kind of an extended battle with the Sinister Six. Now, basically what we begin with in this issue is we have, now the finale of the last issue basically showed Symkaria on fire, basically saying that Doc Ock has basically, he's reversed what his satellites were supposed to do, and it's burning the entire world. So this is the end of the world. But Spidey's still got a job to do, and he's still got to try and save as many innocent people as he can. But as we come to find out, this is all basically an elaborate special effect by none other than Mysterio. And Chameleon is also on site there, helping to move things along. He's even hired, Mysterio has actually even hired actors to act as innocent civilians, while he, basically you know, quote unquote, lays waste to Symkaria. And then out comes Chameleon in a Doc Ock, big kind of suit, and the fight in itself is mildly amusing, because there is a point where Spidey definitely figures out, wait, this is all wrong. The science of this is all wrong. As far as everything being on, everything kind of being on fire, yet the heat should be, it should be this hot, and that's, it's one of the interesting things about Spidey as a character is that he's also a scientist, so he's pretty observant when it comes to this stuff. Of course, came a little bit too, obviously, this is all after the initial shock of seeing the world ending before their eyes, for him and Sable and Widow. Widow is still very kind of laser focused on task, and but then Spidey figures it out, and basically, this is all just a big charade. And Ock is pretty pissed off that Chameleon is kind of trying to steal his thunder as he's attacking him as Doc Ock, but Octavius, he kind of takes control of the suit, and Spidey uses his new magnetic webbing, and blocks all the signals to the suit, and so basically it's just him, it's the Chameleon and the three of them, and of course Mysterio comes out in just a bit. And basically they gain a new ally here. So it's down to the Sinister Two, because there's Ock and there's Rhino are the only two that are left kind of in play, because the other four have been taken out. Now, ironically, and again, there's still clever stuff that's going on. Everybody at Horizon trying to figure out how they can best help Spidey, because they are very convinced that Doc Ock does not have the world's best interests at heart. And so we have Spidey, Sable, and Widow going to Mayan ruins, and this was Mysterio's pick, because he wanted to do some kind of, if this was going to be the end of the world, he wanted it to be kind of a Mayan 2012 thing, so you could have some fun with that idea, because Mysterio is a wacko, but at least he's got a bit of a sense of humor about himself, and ultimately what they end up fighting at the ruins, they end up fighting the Ock-controlled Avengers. They've kind of all been brainwashed, if you will. As, of course the Avengers are very capable of having that done to them. That's the part I didn't understand, is that it's like, okay, this is, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, all that. Yeah. And they're getting mind controlled to fight. It would make more sense if they were, actually fighting them and they didn't have any choice, because, Spidey is, like they're ordered to, because, of Spidey's potential threat to Ock's kind of new world order, if you will. As opposed to them all being kind of just controlled. Because that shit gets old after a while. The whole mind control stuff does get a little tired. Especially when it's people like Cap and Thor and so on and so forth. But then, basically, Spidey starts to realize very slowly that, or actually very quickly, in the final pages, that everything that Ock is doing is based on tech that he's designed. So we kind of come to this is almost kind of mirroring, for those of you who remember or have read the Justice League of America, or JLA, Mark Waid written arc called the Tower of Babel, which is basically, or if you've seen Justice League Doom, the animated film that came out pretty recently, this is basically it reminded me a little bit too much of that, where it was, okay, well, he's, actually, it wasn't on purpose like what Batman was doing, as far as, creating all of these specific counter agents, if you will, to stop the Justice League if they were mind controlled. This more seems to be kind of, it's just that his whole feeling of this is his fault and everything like that just doesn't work for me. It rang false. So, Stefano Caselli does a really, really good job on art here. It's not, again, Ramos and Caselli, it's kind of like apples and oranges, because they're both really, really, really excellent artists. But, there's some good stuff to this book, and there's some really not so good, some very tired stuff to this book. So it was 3 out of 5, leaning more towards 2.5. So it's very average, and like I said, there are moments that are above average, and there are moments that are below average. So really, more of a 2.5 out of 5 for me for Amazing Spider-Man 686. Now, on to Secret Avengers. Now, this I enjoyed a pretty good deal more, because we have Marvel. We have Captain Marvel, now in his kind of old uniform. And we begin the issue with him remembering his death. This was the first graphic novel that had ever been published, right? This was, the first kind of, longer length, major story in one volume. We tend to call graphic novels now, we trade paperbacks, we tend to call them graphic novels. They're not really graphic novels. This was, an oversized, hardcover edition, The Death of Captain Marvel, written by Jim Starlin. That was, basically supposed to be, they're all kind of, everybody's just kind of sitting around watching him die of cancer. And basically, so what we have here is that Marvel, he's kind of reminiscing about that, and he appears to be back, but, as we find out a little bit later in the book, that he knows that the Phoenix Force basically has his cancer in remission. So, basically, with all this information, or, without this information, we start the issue with Marvel and Carol and Novar all kind of working together against the Secret Avengers, against Thor and Vision and Beast and Captain Britain and War Machine and Valkyrie. And, so, they all get taken out pretty quickly, because I think a lot of it is, that they were injured in the first kind of attempts at doing what they can with, with the Phoenix Force. And then we have this moment where, a lot of them are injured. I mean, even, Rhodey is almost dead at the beginning of this issue. And they're able to, bring him back, and Thor is badly injured. Captain Britain, his confidence is way down, and his confidence is directly tied into his powers. I think that is one of the things that Paul Cornell did when he was doing Captain Britain and MI13, which is, if there are any collections of that out there, I really need to buy them, because I really want to just read all those issues over again, because I loved that comic. Particularly when it was Cornell and Leonard Kirk that were doing it. And I'd also like to go back and read Wisdom, because I only have the first issue of that I was able to find for 50 cents at one of our used bookstores. But anyway, so there is, they're all captured, they're all put on Hala, and, Carol and Marvel are kind of sharing this moments together, but what the Vision basically finds out is that there is some kind of mind control amongst the inhabitants of Hala. And they're all just kind of waiting for the Phoenix Force to come. And but where the mind control exactly is coming from, it's they're not quite sure, and they don't know exactly what it has to do with everything that's going on around them. So the question as to whether or not this is really, Marvel, is still kind of up in the air. We don't exactly know who this is. We're pretty sure that it is him, and we do get to see him fight. Albeit still not quite as healthy, but we still get to see him fight Thor, and that's kind of entertaining, because it is kind of fun to see heroes kind of beat the crap out of each other, although not in this particular fashion, but it's still interesting. And then the question that is raised, of course, at the end of the issue is, and especially if it is Marvel, is he really willing to go all the way here with this plan? Because he's starting to see the fruits of his labor, and they're not very sweet. This is a pretty strong issue from a writing standpoint. Remender's doing a really commendable job on Secret Avengers. Again, I still don't really believe that I'm saying this, but Warren Ellis's run on Secret Avengers is by far the best. Remender, his stuff with Secret Avengers doesn't really do a whole lot for me, and I'd like more that does. It's good, but it's not, except for the stuff on Uncanny X-Force, which I thought was actually really strong and really good, and I'd like to start reading more of that. And I keep meaning to pick it up, but I keep forgetting to put it in my poll box. But anyway, and I feel like I'm so far behind. So, anyway, so we have Renato Guedes' art again. I'm not a big fan of his art. I think it's a little too. I don't know if it's more of kind of a Mobius kind of European style that's just kind of turning me off, and just because maybe I've been raised on kind of more American artists or British artists, it doesn't seem to get quite so. It seems like it's very. Not old-fashioned, but the art almost seems kind of like 40s or 50s-esque. It doesn't quite fit within the grand scheme of things. So I just don't think he's a very good match for this title. So, but I still give this a 4 out of 5. Like I said, it's really solidly done. It's very interesting from beginning to end. There isn't a slow point. It's very well paced, and so just good issue, with the exception of the art, pretty much all around for. Secret Avengers number 27. Fantastic Four 606. Now, I really like this issue. It's a one-off. Again, like this could have been the .1 issue. As I said in the last review, I think that the .1 issue where we have kind of like the Nazi read and everything like that, that was a little too wacko for me. I still enjoyed it. But at the same time, it was like, what the hell is going on here? Why is there a Nazi Reed Richards? But this was a much more down-to-earth and ultimately a kind of done-to-death story, because we have what seems to be, the Fantastic Four are on a mission. And they're on a mission where they're going to be kind of invading this kind of hostile territory, and these there's all that in space, and I kind of figured it out about a third of the way through the issue itself, that all of these strange things they're seeing, they're like platelets and white blood cells and bacteria and so forth. I'm like, okay, this is Fantastic Voyage. But why? Why are they in a human being's body? And ultimately the answer is that it's Willie Lumpkin, their faithful mailman, who's always delivered the mail to the Baxter Building for as long as we can remember. He's dying. He has a brain tumor. It's inoperable. It's too large. And so they go in, and basically the mission is to remove it so they can save Willie. You know, he's always been kind of a surrogate member of the Fantastic Four family. I'm kind of missing Spidey on this, although whether or not he even needs to come back now that Johnny's back, you know, that's up in the air. I'd kind of like him to, but again, it's, you know, it's Hickman's title, and if he feels that he can proceed forward without Spider-Man, then more power to him. Because Spidey definitely has enough titles of his own, and is definitely guesting in enough other titles, or is a main character in enough other titles. So, again, this is a really nice story, and I admire the sentiment behind it. Obviously, you know, personally, you know, cancer is something that obviously affects me pretty deeply. And I know I'm saying all of this bullshit while I'm smoking a cigarette, but we're going to just kind of avoid the kind of bizarre, twisted irony of that, and we're going to focus on what really has happened. But why, if they can do this for this one person who's very important to them, it seems kind of selfish, I guess. That's, you know, when you're dealing with these things in a kind of realistic sort of fashion, in a real-world kind of scenario, why couldn't the Fantastic Four really, you know, they could save more lives in a day than they ever could in almost any of their spacefaring missions if they could do this kind of stuff for every cancer patient. You know, if they could just shrink down, get in there, pull out the tumor, and then they survive, and everybody gets to live happily ever after. So, like I said, I mean, like, I understand the sentiment, I appreciate the sentiment, it's a nice sentiment, but I thought that was just something that bugged me. So this was a 4 out of 5. We had Ron Garney on art. His art was really top-notch, very good stuff. So I enjoyed the read, but again, you know, sometimes when you look at things again, you know, the sheen kind of starts to wear off a little bit. So, you know, because I read everything twice before I start to review it. So, so again, 4 out of 5. Because it was, you know, a very solidly told and very well told issue. It was just the kind of the morality of it kind of bugged me. So, anyway, Captain America number 12. So here we have some more secrets being unearthed about the new Scourge. We find out who he is. I'm not going to spoil that. But this is, again, this is more Brubaker embracing Cap's past. You know, in the previous, you know, the whole Mad Bomb idea, that was more, you know, Machine Smith, that was more Cap in the 70s. This is more Cap in, like, the late 80s, early 90s kind of era, or just maybe the late 80s. Because we have, you know, Scourge is a character that was invented in the mid to late 80s. And like I said, I still have those issues. I should have brought them downstairs, but anyway. So we have that Scourge is answering to Henry Peter Gyrich. And Gyrich, you know, of course, is a long-standing member of the Marvel Universe continuity. He's always kind of the guy that's, you know, wagging his finger at the superheroes. You know, he doesn't like them. He's, you know, offended by their presence, so on and so forth. But as to why he's helping Scourge uncover the everybody in kind of, you know, the government's kind of superhuman WITSEC program, why he's doing that is something that we also find out in this book. Because we have Hydra basically has brainwashed him. Because, you know, even Sharon and Cap, they share this moment where it's like, he's an idiot, but he's a patriotic idiot. So there's no way that he would do this. And so, we have, and also part of what else is going on here, with everything else that's going on. Of course, the issue starts up with or just after we learn this information about, or that we see Gyrich with the new Scourge, we also see that Diamondback is in the hospital, and she's in a coma, and the odds are not very much in her favor that she'll wake up. So Cap and Dum-Dum and Sharon head off to kick a whole lot of Hydra ass, and that's when, of course, they find out that Gyrich has been turned. And Gyrich actually meets a reporter from presumably some big newspaper in Washington, and basically offers them information, basically saying, do you know how many villains, how many supervillains the U.S. government is hiding from you? And is kind of, working with. He's making it sound like it's much more sinister than it actually is. I mean, witness protection is a legitimate, type of program for the most part. Obviously, we know that there's assuredly some real scumbags that are in witness protection, but this is part of some of the compromises that you have to make in order to get bigger bad guys off the street. And everybody who's in this project is is really pretty small time comparatively speaking. And we have another supervillain that gets offed in this. And that's where we also learn who this new Scourge is. This was not as strong as the previous issue. I thought the previous issue was better in terms of just pacing, storytelling. This seemed really brief. It seemed like they just didn't really get to encapsulize a whole lot. So and although I did warm up a little bit more to Zurcher's art, which I thought was strange. So the storytelling was not quite as good, but the art was better. So this was a very solid 3.5 out of 5, leaning a little bit more towards 4. It's still, but the next issue, because when I found out who the new Scourge was, I didn't really care, because it's a character that I am not familiar with at all. So I didn't really care what, exactly, I knew who he was from memory, but I don't know anything about him as a character. So I don't know if it's another brainwashing type of thing or what. So anyway, Ultimate X-Men number 12. As my friend Ghost Critic pointed out, Nick Spencer, this is just not his wheelhouse, this particular title. Although this is a strong kind of finale issue for him, because Brian Wood is going to be taking over next time, and I'm wholly unfamiliar with his work. I haven't read DMZ, I haven't read Northlanders, but a lot of people rave about him, so I am excited about him taking over, particularly because Spencer just hasn't been as strong as we would like him to be, because this, like I said, this kind of thing just isn't his bag, baby. So, basically what we have here is we have this kind of very well-dressed gentleman going to a lunatic asylum. And, as he passes by everybody's kind of like, rapidly aging and dropping dead. And what we see who is in the asylum is Alex Summers, Havoc. And now I don't know what happened to him before, again, tuned out of Ultimate X-Men after a while, kind of after Millar left, and Bendis did a run as well. It was around when Stuart Immonen started writing, and it just didn't really do much for me, so I stopped reading it. But this, I've been kind of just keep coming back to this, kind of keep hoping that it gets better, and it just doesn't really. So, but we have Alex Summers, who is, he's in a straitjacket and everything like that, and the reason apparently that he's locked up in there is that he keeps seeing his dead brother Scott, because as we all know, Scott was killed during Ultimatum. in like one of the stupidest ways possible. I hated Ultimatum, and I think that's one of the things they're trying to do is they're trying to undo some of what happened at Ultimatum, because he's seeing, whether or not that's actually Scott's ghost, I don't know, but and whether or not Scott will actually come back to life, as we have seen previously with Magneto and with Professor X. They're back, but they're staying very much in the shadows for right now. And basically what we have here is that, and then there's more, then we dip into Roxxon, and, they're trying to get their hands on the M serum, which is apparently what I'm assuming is the, what the U.S. government actually used to create mutants. And they are working with this mysterious suited man. And as the issue progresses, we ultimately find that this suited man is none other than Mr. Sinister. And he is serving, and they're talking about the four, quite possibly the four horsemen of Apocalypse, maybe. But again, I don't know Ultimate Apocalypse. I don't know what he's capable of. I don't even know what he's supposed to look like. So, but Mr. Sinister is pretty easily recognizable, because once you get that red diamond in the forehead, you pretty much know what you're in for. So again, this was strong, not, still not up to what we know that Nick Spencer can do, because he's done a lot of really good work on some other works. For instance, Morning Glories, pretty much a 5 out of 5 every time. But this, just the whole kind of working with superheroes thing doesn't really seem to be working out for Spencer as a writer. So I think that it's a good thing that Wood's taking over. So, I wasn't displeased with this issue. It's a solid 3 out of 5. It raised more questions than it answered. But, and again, it completely taking away, there's no crossover here between the Ultimates and Ultimate X-Men. Because what's going on in the Ultimates is like, it's like world consuming, and then what's going on in Ultimate X-Men just seems to have only to do with the X-Men. And so it's a little bit of, again, there's this disconnect there that really shouldn't exist. So these two titles should be kind of overlapping because they're in the same universe. And it's a very small and condensed universe, so there's enough time to make sure that each comic can kind of run parallel to the other. And now, of course, the argument could be made that that's not happening also in Ultimate Spider-Man, but Ultimate Spider-Man is more personal story, and it has the benefit of that it can be taking place before everything, because it does seem to be the whole series started before all, everything that's, happened just, at the end of the first volume of Ultimate Spider-Man with Peter Parker's death. So again, 3 out of 5 for Ultimate X-Men number 12. And, like I said, we're looking forward to Brian Wood coming on board. So, moving on to the independent stuff. Well, there are really only a couple of independent titles that I read this week, and one of them was really bad, and one of them was really good. So I'll start with the really bad one. And that was IDW's new Godzilla #1. Now, this is written by Dwayne Swarzinski, who he currently writes Birds of Prey, which I'm not a huge fan of at all. But he did write Immortal Iron Fist for a while. And that was also when I kind of turned off from that title too, even though I was interested in where that was going. Just the, because it had gone from, having people like Fraction and Brubaker and, David Aja doing, tremendous artwork to, kind of, the artwork started to get a little bit shoddy, the stories weren't quite as engrossing, so I ended up dropping that. So basically what we have here is that the giant, we have, it's kind of, revolves around these two people. We have Boxer and Irv. Boxer is former SAS, and he is a bodyguard to this teenaged Japanese girl. And Irv is getting married to his true love, to this other man in Mexico City. And we have, I'm assuming, Spiga attack. And there's Rodan, and there's not, just the giant monsters are loose once again. Of course, here comes Godzilla, and that's where. And this issue seems to be mainly about Boxer and what he's trying to do to save this girl. And that's where it basically lost me. It was, I don't care. This is one of the things that fucks up all of the Godzilla films, is I don't care about the people. The people are very boring. Okay? I want to see more monster combat. Okay? And this, again, I appreciate that Straczynski is trying to give us a more interesting protagonist, but ultimately that doesn't help me. I want to see, I would like to see a comic someday be written almost from the point of view of the monsters, to almost give them not a voice or an intellect per se, but something akin to that, something that lets us see the world through their eyes rather than us always constantly having to look at it through other people's eyes. Because these are really cool monsters. These are great monsters, and they keep getting kind of, people keep pissing on them because they feel they have to tell the story from the point of view of the of people. And it would just be a lot more interesting to me personally. So I guess it's more because I grew up on a lot of the Godzilla films. I used to watch them a lot with my older brother, and so I was a big fan of Godzilla. I went to a G-Con in Chicago. I was actually working there, had a booth there when I was working for a video store, and got to actually meet both of the gentlemen who played Godzilla, man in suit. Both of them. Got them to sign my poster for Destroy All Monsters, which is being released for the first time on DVD at that point in time. And I gave that poster to my brother. So that's kind of a prized possession of his. So it means a lot to me, and it's kind of just, which is why I've kind of been avoiding all the Godzilla titles from IDW. So this to me was just more kind of, nah. I just don't care. It was 2 out of 5. I'm sure other people might get more out of it than I did, but I just couldn't get with it. Bionic Man number 9. So this is, again, we're still working on Kevin Smith's and Phil Hester's, the screenplay that Kevin Smith wrote for a potential Bionic Man film, $6 million man film. And, we've seen it be kind of weak at some points, more strong than weak, though. I do have to admit that. And this issue kind of really enters into almost like Michael Bay territory, where there's, basically Hull has, brought his assault to Washington, D.C. And he's got his kind of reverse EMP machine that, basically it doesn't shut down machines, but actually shuts down people. It actually works against organics, shutting them down. So, people are, thousands of people are dropping like flies. And, of course, it's, a confrontation between Hull and some of the members of OSI and Hull's army of Bionics, I'm thinking Mass Effect, sorry. And then Steve Austin doing everything that he can with what he can do, with his particular skill set. And it's just an epic throwdown is coming. And this issue was just terrific in the setup. that. It was very smartly paced. The art by Jonathan Lau is just terrific, as always. I really, really enjoy his art. It's very dynamic. And, it's just, this has been, all in all, this has been a really entertaining series. And I'm sure that it will start kind of going downhill as things move further away from Kevin Smith's original ideas, as like it did with Green Hornet, because I just stopped following it, after a while. And Phil Hester is a really smart writer. It's just that I just wasn't as into it as I was before. But for right now, it's really fun. It's really action-packed. There's a lot of good character moments. As Steve, says, there's a nuke that's about to go off where he's being held captive in the beginning of the issue, and he has a moment where he's like, and here, where the nuke is about to go off, and and me without a lead-lined fridge, it's kind of a knock against the shittiness that was Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So this was a very solid 4.5 out of 5. Very entertaining, very well told story. Now on to DC. Some really good stuff came out of DC this week. And I'm very happy about that. This is one of the weeks that I do really look forward to, because it has 3 of my favorite titles from DC coming out all at the same time, and it's Aquaman, iVampire, and The Flash. But also some other couple of something that I thought was very good, and again something I thought that was very bad. And so we'll talk about more the thing that I started picking up that was really good, and that was Justice League Dark number 9. So here we have whoever was writing this before, I can't remember who it was, but they're gone. James Lemire is now on Justice League Dark. So that for me is a big plus, it's a big positive for this book. It made me pick it up because I really like Jeff Lemire's stuff. I really like what he was doing on I love what he's doing on Animal Man. I love what he's doing on Frankenstein Agent of Shade, and if it continues this way, I'm going to love what he's doing on Justice League Dark. So basically, we have kind of a new team here. We've lost, not per se lost a couple. One member is definitely gone. That's Shade, Changing Man, and that's fine with me because he was just way too wacky for this title anyway. I just couldn't get with his character. That was one of the big things for me to overcome. Madame Xanadu kind of sits most of this one out. She ultimately has a much better story going on anyway, I think, in Demon Knights. So I think that if she's just there, that's more interesting. But I think that she will eventually come back to the fold here. But we do have new on this team. We have Andrew Bennett from iVampire. So again, big check mark in the plus column because I love his character. And we have this new character, Black Orchid, who is a shapeshifter. What her story is, we don't know. But she's assigned to the Justice League Dark by Steve Trevor, who works for this Project Argus. And Project Argus, one of their operatives went missing as they were looking into Dr. Mist. I'm sorry, the operative's name is Dr. Mist. And they're looking into this new cult that is down south. And it is the cult of Felix Faust. Now, Felix Faust is someone I'm not terribly familiar with in the DC universe other than his appearances in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons, where he was actually a really formidable foe. But in this particular incarnation of him, he's not he's apparently not that big of a deal, but he seems to be much stronger now because he has this apparently magic artifact. And so we have, John Constantine, for whatever reason, is kind of the de facto leader of this team. And I'm not sure why, because of anybody that anybody else would want to listen to, I think the guy that you would look to last would be John Constantine. But I also, by that same token, appreciate the role that he's kind of stepped into as a leader of other heroes, or of these darker, more magically inclined heroes, as they investigate whatever that they do. In this particular issue, they're being sent on this mission, but it's, basically what is being told is that that what Constantine has been promised by Steve Trevor is that he gets to look into the Black Room, which is the room in which apparently all sorts of magical artifacts and really powerful magic is kept. And so he goes to the team. He kind of cashes in his IOU with Andrew Bennett to get him on their side. Black Orchid is a member of Argus, so she's tagging along. And so in this, in this whole issue, we see John basically acting the real bastard. But we get to see everybody kind of do their things. Zatanna, Deadman, Bennett, and it's all in Black Orchid. Has some pretty interesting and fun powers too, at least as far as her shape-changing ability, and just little because it's a magical team, why not use some sleight of hand to take down the bad guy, which of course is what they end up doing. And what they find at the end that has been helping Faust and his cult is this Tesseract. So here we are. We're in a completely different universe other than the Marvel universe, and what we've just seen explode all over, the tune of over $1 billion worldwide is the Avengers, and they're all chasing this thing called the Tesseract. Now, the Tesseract is not, it's certainly not exclusive to Marvel. The idea of it for the movies, I think, definitely is, but just in general lore, there is this kind of mythological artifact called the Tesseract, and basically it's more of a map. And what this map contains, apparently, is something that is also now being brought into the mainstream New 52 DC universe. Now, I won't give away what exactly that is, because I'm sure that a lot of you out there, particularly Ghost Critic, because I did watch your review and I saw what you said about this comic, and you seem to read a lot, Ghost Critic, you seem to read a lot more of the kind of more magical-based books than I do, so I don't really know what this is all about, but I know that this was, this is something else that seems to be being brought into, like I said, the mainstream DCU. So I know that at the very least, now I do know where they are going, the next issue, that's kind of been teased, and they're going to the House of Mystery. So now that is also something that has changed hands for a while. It was a mainstream, well, not a mainstream DC title, but House of Mystery is where, for instance, in those stories, in that anthology book, is where we first met Andrew Bennett, and of course, you have, Cain and Abel. Well, you had the House of Secrets and the House of Mystery. Cain was the caretaker of, that was kind of like, House of Mystery was kind of, DC's answer to the old EC comics like Vault of Horror and Tales from the Crypt, which is nowhere near as violent or as subversive. It was very watered down stuff. But, I still, I'm really anxious to see where they go when they go there. So this terrific issue. The art's really interesting. It's not very typical for kind of a superhero comic, but it is. So it works on both ends, and I can't remember the artist's name, but Jeff Lemire, what a guy, what a writer, what a talent, terrific stuff. It's, very solid 4.5 out of 5 for issue number 9 of Justice League Dark, and I am on board as long as Lemire is on board. Can't promise that I won't drop it when he's done though. Aquaman number 9, another really strong issue in Jeff Johns' only good book in regards to the DC universe right now, at least in my opinion. I know some of you disagree with me. Some of you like Justice League. I fucking hate it. Some of you like Green Lantern. I really don't like that either. But so we've got, basically from the beginning here, we've got Black Manta is going after Prisoner of War. Now this is again part of Arthur's old group, the Others. I don't know who Prisoner of War is. I don't know who these others are, but Prisoner of War is fucking cool. I mean, I really admired how much detail and how much information we learn about Prisoner of War just from these couple of pages. See, this is where Johns does really great stuff, is how we can learn so much about a character in just a few frames. That this is who he is, this is his power, that he's able to channel all of these different kind of soldiering abilities, from being a sniper to being a medic to being a paratrooper, so on and so forth. It's really interesting stuff. And that he's got these, these shackles that, that make him this prisoner. So it's him versus Black Manta at the beginning here. And then we move on more towards more stuff with Aquaman and Yawara, who, her apparent ability is to control animals. Kind of like the Vixen of this world, but not, well, Vixen couldn't control animals. She could just kind of take on their abilities, kind of like Animal Man can. So, basically, don't mess with Yawara's pets, or else she'll fuck you up. That was the main lesson to take away from here, and also the other lesson that, and this was kind of also hinted at before, that Yawara and Arthur very much used to be a thing. Or at least wanted to be a thing, but now Aquaman is married to Mera, and who wouldn't be with that outfit and that long flowing red hair? Ooh, I love redheads, which explains my obsessive love of Christina Hendricks, even though I haven't seen a single episode of Mad Men. And we learn more about Dr. Shin and how he's involved in all of this. And yeah, Dr. Shin's he's a real dick. He's really fucked over Arthur in pretty much almost every way he possibly could. But we get to this moment where we do learn a very significant truth about this kind of ongoing war between Aquaman and Black Manta, and why it's so significant, why these two characters hate each other so much. And it is really interesting stuff. This, the secret that's kind of pulled out here is really neat. It's, it makes everything fit very well together, and it gives us more of an idea of who Black Manta is, especially within this new 52 universe. So very happy about the way that this has been continuing. There were some panels, I swear to God, where Ivan Reis's art started to look very Neil Adams-ish. And believe me, that's absolutely a good thing. He's continuing to kick ass on art. Johns is continuing to really defy expectations with this book, making Aquaman a lot cooler, a lot more accessible, and just making the title extremely readable and very entertaining. So, a very solid 4.5 out of 5, close to 5 for Aquaman number 9. Now, the not so good thing, and this is not part of the new 52. And that is Batman Incorporated number 1. Had to read it. just if for no other reason than to reconfirm that I want nothing to do whatsoever with Grant Morrison's Batman. I really, really don't like his stuff on Batman. It's come to a point where it's so crazy and it's so insane and it's so trippy that it just doesn't fucking make sense. I get, because we do have, here's Bruce and here's Damian, and I get none of the same feelings that I'm getting from Batman and Robin, that, Tomasi and Patrick Gleason are just, really kicking serious ass on, where the whole kind of father-son, it's just, basically we get, here's Damian being a brat again. And, basically, I'm not going to get into all the bullshit about this issue. I just didn't care. I read it twice, and both times, and the second time I hated it more than the first, because it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, I know this whole Batman Incorporated thing does actually tie into what's going on within the New 52, but, the fact that this is coming out now, that has nothing to do with Night of the Owls, also is even less incentive for me to read it. And just, all of Morrison's super duper trippy shit that he does. I mean, it's like, it literally is. It's like reading a book that is being written by someone who's a really big fan of Batman, but also has a really serious, like, acid addiction. Aside from Chris Burnham's art, it sucks. Chris Burnham's art is terrific. I will admit that. But nothing about this book interested me. All of it just made me wish, please God, let me see more Snyder or Tomasi or what, some other work on the character of Batman. I would even rather read, like, the Finch stuff on The Dark Knight than I would this fucking title. So, again, this was, for the art alone, it was a 2 out of 5, but that's the only plus side, believe me. The Flash, number 9. We're in Gorilla City. Yay! Which is where he ended up at the end of the last issue when he broke out of the Speed Force. But unfortunately, when he arrives at Gorilla City, we have Gorilla Grodd, or King Grodd, as he is now known. He has just taken control. He has just defeated his father in Mortal Kombat, and, I don't know, ate his brain or something like that, or is supposed to eat his brain. But he, to the elders of Gorilla City, now we haven't met anybody named like Solivar or anything like that yet, but basically Flash arrives, he has no memory of who he is. And the elders of Gorilla City, they know who he is. Not that he's Barry Allen or anything like that, but that he is the messenger, he is the runner, the light. And it's asked the question, are these gorillas somehow tied to the Speed Force itself as far as their developed intelligence is concerned? And that's where, because they say, as they're showing Flash this great, kind of, this kind of pictogram of all these different events, they're talking about that, these lightning strikes to their elders is what fostered this great intelligence in them and also allowed them to see the past, the present, and the future. And whether or not they still have those abilities, that seems to be up in the air, but what we have here is that the Flash is the herald of the destruction of their society as it is, or as it has been. But he is kind of also the bringer of a new type of society for them. Now, also at the same time, we've got some of these other stories going on with Iris and some other people being stuck inside the Speed Force. We've got issues with Pied Piper and and Flash and and Patty's boss, that they're lovers apparently, and Patty's taking off some personal time in kind of directly correlating to what apparently has happened to Barry, that he's dead, that he's believed to be dead, and there's this very strong anti-vigilante sentiment in Central City right now. So there's a lot of different stories going on at once, but of course the main focus here is on Flash being in Gorilla City and having to square off with Grodd. Now this is prior to Grodd having any real mental abilities or anything like that we've seen from him in other areas where Gorilla Grodd has he has mind manipulation abilities. But when all is said and done, what really carries this book more than anything is not just the story. The story is very solid. The story is pretty well told. It's a little too disconnected, and it seems to bounce around a lot, because you're wondering at the end, where the hell is Patty headed off to? She's flying to Guatemala. Why is she going there? And then we have Barry coming back to the city, then finding out that yes, there's this huge anti-vigilante sentiment, because they still believe that Flash had something to do with all of these disasters that have been going on in Central City lately. But of course, as we know that from the previous issue, that's not true. That the Speed Force is actually good, and that he can use it without terrible things happening. But again, like I said, the strongest point of every issue of the Flash has been Francis Manapul's art. Because the story the stories have been really good. The issues by themselves have been terrific for the most part. This one, not so great. It was a little off. I felt it was a little too off kilter. There was a little bit too much going on, a little bit too much information being thrown at us. But again, that's almost preferable to too little information. And but Francis Manapul's art is absolutely, it's amazing. He just does amazing stuff on this title. And so I'm glad that he's getting this kind of recognition that he deserves, because he's also a really excellent co-writer. Him and Brian Bucoletto are doing really, really terrific job on The Flash. So this is a very solid 4 out of 5 for Flash number 9. So very happy with this. And that, of course, this now brings us to the sole pick of the week. Because this wasn't a particularly strong week. And so there was only one title, and since it's the only one I haven't mentioned, and what came out this week, is, of course, I, Vampire number 9. Now, one of the reasons that I'm glad that Andrew Bennett is in Justice League Dark right now is because this comic, I, Vampire, isn't even in, Justice League Dark is definitely in the top 100s of the best-selling books of each month. I, Vampire is definitely not. We're already, and I'm afraid to say this, I feel like that we've already lost. I feel like we've already lost the last of the greats. That we have those 5 incredible issues, and that's it. That's all we're getting. Because, like Josh Fialkoff said, the sales of the trade were going to really determine the future of whether or not the tale of the last of the greats themselves would continue. I haven't heard a lot from Josh lately about that, and I intend to ask him on Twitter probably later tonight, because I really want an answer to that, and even if it's just a half-baked answer, even if we have no idea how it's going. But if we have some indication that it's either not coming back or that it is coming back, I want to know. Because Josh Fialkoff, to me, has become one of the preeminent storytellers in the comics world, to me, personally. Fell in love with Last of the Greats, have my copy of Elk's Run, read some of Echoes. I need to get the full trade. Really need to get that. I want to get Tumor. And of course, just the fantastic work that he and Andrea Sorrentino have been doing on I, Vampire. So basically what we have here in this issue is we have the vampires have split from Gotham City, and Andrew and Mary, kind of rekindling their romance, if you will, have brought them all to the desert in Utah. Why they would go to a desert? Not really sure, but it's, well, I mean, it's vast, it's unpopulated, and they can stay away from normal people. And basically there's a very general unrest, because Andrew Bennett is crazy powerful right now. You know, he can walk out in the sun, nothing happens to him. He can do all of these different things. I mean, he is the most powerful vampire, you know, in existence right now. So there's a general feeling of unrest amongst the vampires that he has brought with him to Utah, because they want to feed. They don't want cow's blood, which is what Andrew has been getting them. They want human blood, and he's not allowing it. And as he says at one point in time to a particularly unruly customer that's in their camp, he says, you know, look, I'm not your savior, I'm your jailer. You know, you don't get to go out there and start, you know, making shit worse for us. You know, you have to start assimilating. Not so much assimilating, but this is, you know, humans are off limits now. That's it. Nothing else. And again, these amazing displays of power, he really shows that he can stand up to just about anyone. But now we also have Tig and the Good Doctor are going off to the Van Helsings. Plural. And Van Helsings have this castle, this massive castle in Transylvania, and they are more of a kind of a huge anti-vampire, almost death squad. But beyond squad, it's like this death platoon. I mean, there are apparently, dozens upon dozens of them. And they're all just, they're like, they're crazed. And, and Tig and the Doctor, they're trying to, explain kind of what's going on with Andrew. And the Van Helsings know that Andrew is now this all-powerful being. And so we have, what we get at the end is this hint of what's to come, which is this grand battle between Andrew versus Mary, because she wants control back of her little army. And she is the only one willing to stand up to Andrew to get that, to get her army back. But we also have the Van Helsings, and they're coming in, heavy on their way to Utah. And so, I mean, the final couple of pages are just like, oh, this looks so awesome. What is going to happen now? This is what's fucking great about this title, is that it never ceases to surprise you. There's always something new and interesting and really, really deftly handled going on. And not necessarily shocking. Of course, the death of Andrew Bennett was really shocking when Tig killed him. And his resurrection, I thought, was a little bit longer in coming, but I'm glad they did this crossover with Justice League Dark so they could bring him back a little bit sooner. Fialkov he keeps the pacing, he keeps this thread going, he keeps this very love-hate relationship with Andrew and Mary alive. and which is terrific because I love Mary as a character. I think she's a great villain, whatever. I don't want to make it too sexist, but you know, she's a great foil for Andrew because he is absolutely head over heels in love with her, but he also knows that she is evil and she sometimes needs to be stopped. And the introduction of the Van Helsings is just, it's so fascinating. It's so interesting to see these, these new players on the field, and what are they capable of? I don't know, but it's just, I can't wait. I mean, that's what, when a comic gets you to a point where you just cannot wait for the next issue because what's happening is so cool, you're almost guaranteed a slot in my pick of the weeks, or my picks of the week. But since this was, this and Bionic Man #9, that's kind of a book of the week. But this is far and away a pick of the week. It's an extra perfect 5 out of 5 for iVampire #9. Now, just as a little bit of still comics news, but something that's important to, I think, discuss, and that is the coming of a gay character to the DC Universe. A major gay character. Now, again, I'm not 100% certain if this has been verified or not, but there were 2 big rumors that were going around about who the gay character could be, because they said it's an existing character, but the 2 big rumors seem to be Tim Drake, who's now Red Robin, as in the Teen Titans, but also the other one being Alan Scott, who of course is the original Green Lantern, the Golden Age Green Lantern. And now Alan Scott exists in Earth 2, and just solely in that book. So obviously he's been around for a while. He's been around since the 40s. But, his particular character hasn't really had much relevance lately. And now that he's starting to appear in Earth 2, it seems to be that that's the way that DC looks like they're going to be going. I think that the preference was for Tim Drake. I was personally more behind that idea because it would have been much more of it would have been a character that would have gained more attention, and just seems to, he might have worn it a little bit better. So this is not so much me, kind of peeing all over the idea itself, because, I mean, God knows there should be, as many types of characters as, it should be the universe that we, the world that we live in as we actually live is incredibly diverse. The comic world should be just as diverse. Not from just a character standpoint, but also as a creator standpoint. We should have more women, more minorities involved, instead of a bunch of white guys controlling the majority of the characters. So it's always a big thing to me when I hear that this creator or that creator is going to be working on this title or that title. It brings more diversity to the comic world, which ultimately brings something better to the comic world. So, Alan Scott, I'm glad there's going to be, kind of this homosexual reboot of Alan Scott. Like I said, it's a good thing for comics. It's a good and it also, in a way, it does work actually better than Tim Drake, because we've seen Tim Drake for quite some time now, and he's been dating. Although in this new 52, he hasn't, at least not to my knowledge, because I haven't read Teen Titans because I don't give a shit. But good luck to DC. I hope that this is the right move. And again, this is not confirmed yet. At least, like I said, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think this is absolutely 100% confirmed. So, if they decide to go this way, I'm happy with whatever choice they make. Well, I should say mostly happy. If it's really out of place, then no. But with either of these characters, it'll work. So, good for you, DC. Let's continue to see more growth and diversity of these characters. So that is it for new comics, bitches, for this week. So again, this is on my new channel. This is the new home of the Shadow Gallery of New Comics, bitches. So please subscribe. Thumb it up, thumb it down, leave some comments, people. I love responding to comments when I do actually get around to it. I know I'm slow and I hate being that way, but the only way that I have a lot of contact with this is through my phone, and I can't really respond very well to comments via my phone. So I will definitely try and be better about that. Once I upload this, I'm sure I'm going to be responding to a whole bunch of comments. For those of you who enjoyed the Watchmen video, thank you. I really appreciate all your feedback. It's been, I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. Much happier than I was when it was just actually the 15-minute version. So that just goes to show you, I like talking. I like talking about good stuff. So in comics, that's good stuff to me, except when it's bad. And we saw some of that in this particular segment. So hats off to you. Continue watching those Watchmen videos because they have been fantabulous. They've been just great. All the ones so far have been terrific. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next bunch. And just really happy with the way that this is all going. So, yeah. So, like I said, subscribe, thumb it up, thumb it down, leave me comments. Let me know what you're thinking about this title, that title, whatever I reviewed this week. And we're going to see you next time. So until then, stay in the shadows, people.